strategies for Huffman coding, which did not quite work out. One of them was arranging the frequencies. In the previous session, we saw a couple of greedy strategies for Huffman coding. Those strategies did not quite work out. They did not give optimal encoding. One of the strategies was to arrange the frequencies in ascending order and start giving increasing length prefix-free codes to each one of them. Yes, I will just okay. Then the other strategy was a top-down approach where you kind of break the frequencies into almost equal sized two parts and then recursively keep doing this till you hit just one frequency per bag and then start encoding it from leaf to root based on whether you've taken a left path or the right path in the tree. And the third greedy strategy we discussed was a bottom-up strategy, which went somewhat like this. Start with the least two frequently occurring elements with frequencies say f and f prime. Assign a string say 0 to 1 and the string 1 to the other. Combine the frequencies creating a new letter with frequency f plus f prime. Repeat the above steps till all the letters are assigned with some strings. Okay, so of course, underlying this is also a tree, a bottom-up tree, if you will. It's quite natural way to, there is a quite a natural way to associate this strategy with a tree. The nodes of the tree are subsets of the alphabet. This was also the case for the top-down tree that we had. The leaves are single letters. The depth of the leaf is in fact the length of the code word. And once you specify this tree, it's equivalent to specifying the entire encoding as well. So either you give encoding like in the table form like we gave the first few times, or you can just tell what the tree for this code is, and that also will completely specify the encoding. Okay, so this is something we already saw. What I'm going to do now is give you an example. Okay, so remember we had this example earlier as well. We have 5 letters in our alphabet and their frequencies are 100, 3, 5, 45 and 20. So according to our algorithm or the greedy strategy we are discussing, we start with the two least occurring elements. In this case, they are B and C and their frequencies are 3 and 5. And I arbitrarily assign 0 to one of them and 1 to the other. So this is what the tree starts to look like. Now, their combined frequencies are 8. So as if I have added a new letter in my alphabet and removed the two letters B and C. And that results into 4 frequencies. The original 100, 45 and 20, these 3 frequencies are retained as they are. And the 4th frequency that gets added to the table is 8. So 8 is the least, the smallest frequency, and the second smallest is 20. So now in the tree, I should be combining 8 and 20. So that's what the tree does. And now again, I could make the bigger subtree formed by combining 3 and 5 as the left child of this node that I created with frequency 28 or the right child. Had I made it the right child, the edge feeding into that would have been labeled 1. But I have chosen arbitrarily to make it 0. And this new letter has been added. And that is the right child of this new leaf, new root. and therefore its label, the label pointing to that edge is 1. So I continue like this. Now 28 and the next largest frequency is 45. So I combine these two, they give 73, and 73 and 100 is yet another frequency. So the tree kind of turns out to be quite skew. And the encodings are, the letter A is encoded as 1, letter D is encoded as 0, 1, letter E is encoded as 0, 0, 1, and so on. Okay, so this is how you read off the codes given a tree. Somebody was asking last time, how does one encode, how does one come up with an encoding given a tree? So this is how you come up with the encoding given a tree. If it appears as, if the node appears as left, left, right in the tree, then its encoding is going to be 0, 0, 1, and so on. Okay, so one example, let's look at maybe another example. This was the other frequency table we have analyzed in the past. This gave some counter examples for some of the strategies. So here, notice that 20 and 40 are the two lowest frequencies. So I will combine them and obtain a frequency 60. So 60, when I add 60 to the table, now I have four frequencies, 100, 80, 60, and 45. So similarly as in the previous case, I combine, I take 60, 45 and obtain 105. At this point in my table, I have three frequencies, 80, 100, and 105. Notice that this 105 frequency that we added is not the lowest two, is not among the two lowest. So what do I do in the tree? I abandon this tree for a while. I kind of keep it on the side. I take the two smallest frequencies. They don't happen to be from this tree. They are two fresh frequencies. So I start another tree over there. So I kind of start a separate subtree. So at intermediate stage in this greedy strategy, you could be forming forests. Like in this case, you take 80, 100 and combine it as 180. Now at this point, you only have two frequencies left in the table, combine them. Okay. And now you will notice, if you ask me what is the encoding for the letter D, then I'll tell you it is 1, 0, 1, 0. What is the encoding for A? It's 1, 1, and so on. Okay. So I hope the bottom-up strategy is completely clear to everybody. Let me pause for a couple of minutes here, or maybe 1 minute, and see if there are any questions about this. Okay, good, fantastic. I think there are not too many questions. There are no questions. So that's the bottom-up strategy. Let me kind of write it a little more carefully, but as I said, spoiler alert, this is indeed the optimal strategy, or this is indeed one of the optimal strategies to come up with Huffman coding. We are going to try to prove that this greedy strategy is indeed optimal. Okay, so it's a very interesting proof actually. Before, so we'll do this now. So we'll try to show that it is optimal. But before I do that, let me write down the pseudocode of the algorithm a little better in order to tell you what are the underlying data structures that one uses in order to do Huffman coding. All right, so as input, we receive an alphabet. Each letter in the alphabet comes with its frequency. And what I'm required to do is finally give binary encoding, which is uniquely decodable with best compression. There is a question. Is my voice breaking frequently? So actually, Aniket is saying my voice is breaking frequently. So is it at my end or possibly at his end? Okay. Okay. So I think most people are suggesting possibly that your connection may be slightly slow, Aniket. But thanks for bringing it up. If it happens to most, maybe I should make sure that my connection is okay, because this will also affect the recording, I guess. Okay. Any other comments? This also tells me that there are some people who are also awake, not just in the meeting. Okay, so coming back to the code, we are going to use what is known as the min heap. This was also the data structure that was going to be used in our priority queue that we required for minimum spanning tree problem. I never went into the data structure details, but I'm going to generate a tutorial for this week, which is going to be a very simple tutorial, which is just a reading tutorial. You'll have to go through and read a couple of things, couple of pages from the textbook, and one of them will be about Dijkstra's algorithm. So that will be coming up shortly. Right. Any questions? Okay. So what we do is we create a leaf node AI. We insert it into a min heap with frequency Fi as the key. Now, while the heap contains at least one element, so as this heap you can think of as maintaining the currently available letters in the alphabet. So when I take two letters out of the alphabet, combine them, now the overall alphabet has one less letter. So this heap is going to maintain the current list of letters, active letters in the alphabet, which are yet to be coded. Okay, so while there is at least one element in the heap, extract the two nodes with the lowest frequencies. Let's say the nodes are U and V, and their frequency keys are FU and FV. Now create a new internal node W, which is what we did in the tree. FW is FU plus FV. So that's its frequency. Make U the left child of W. This is for the output of the tree. So this is to come up with the encoding for U, and make V the right child of the node W. Now U and V have been extracted out of the heap, but W goes and sits in the heap with its key value being equal to FW. So now, depending on how large FW is, MinHeap will put it in the appropriate place inside it. And now if in the next round, FW is one of the two smallest frequencies, it will extract it out, or it will extract it out at whenever its turn comes up. Okay, so this we kind of do repeatedly. And that is the full code for, of course, finally return this edge. So that's the idea. So that finishes the description of the pseudocode. What I haven't told you is how does one use min heaps, or how does one implement min heaps. So I'll suggest that if you don't know anything about min heaps, just read about it. And I'm even hoping that in your data structures course, you would have actually implemented min heaps or some heaps, max heaps, min heaps. So with that, you would be able to completely understand the code for Huffman coding here. Okay, let me just wait 30 seconds to see if there are any questions, else I'll move forward with the correctness. Okay, perfect. All right, so now we are going to talk about correctness. So what do we need to say? We need to say that the tree obtained by the bottom-up strategy is in fact the best possible tree. What does the best possible tree mean? If a certain leaf in the tree is at position left, left, right, left, then I know that its encoding is going to be 0, 0, 1, 0. So each letter in the alphabet is associated with a string, binary string of length equal to its depth in the tree. And now I want to say that, the overall number of letters used to encode the entire file can in fact be computed using the depth of every letter in the alphabet times its frequency added for every letter in the alphabet. Okay, so that's really how many bits we are spending to encode a certain file. So our notion of optimality will rest on a definition like this, which is only natural to do. So what I'll say is I'll associate a quantity called cost to a tree. What is the cost of a tree? So let T be any tree corresponding to the prefix-free encoding of sigma. Now I'm not even saying that this tree is obtained by bottom-up strategy or top-down strategy. You can always give me a tree that talks about the encoding of the alphabet. And as long as I keep the following code for a letter at the leaf, which is that if the letter appears at left, left, right, left, whatever, then it is encoded as 0, 0, 1, 0, whatever. Okay, so under this kind of understanding of how trees are mapped to codes, uh, give me any tree. This sort of an encoding is prefix free, is not very difficult to see. And so any tree that corresponds to a prefix free encoding of this sort for an alphabet, let me define the cost of the tree to be this very natural quantity. Look at the depth of the letter in the tree. That is this quantity dt of ai. At what depth does the letter ai appear in the tree? And multiply it with the frequency of that letter. So this quantity is telling you how many letters, how many binary bits will I send to encode all occurrences of the letter AI in the file. Because to encode one occurrence of AI, I will be using DT of AI many bits, but I know that AI will appear FI many times. So I'll be using so many bits to encode the letter AI. And now I just add all the letters, I add this quantity for all the letters in the alphabet. So cost of the tree is basically the number of bits I end up sending. If the encoding is given by this tree, then cost of t is the number of letters I use to encode the entire file. dt of ai, as I said, is the depth of the node corresponding to ai in the tree. So one simple observation that one can easily make first is any optimal tree is a full binary tree. Okay, let me pause and see if you can think of why that is the case. There is also a question or a hand raise, or maybe that was by mistake. Yeah, so why don't you think about why every optimal tree must be a full binary tree. By a full binary tree, I mean every internal node has um, fan out 2. I don't mean balanced binary tree. All I mean is full binary tree. Unique encoding. So Vishwanath is saying that will follow from unique encoding. That is absolutely correct. Any other thoughts? Okay, so let's see. Suppose there is a node U, which is the only child of its parent V. There is some comment. Yeah, so one of the comments says reducing the depth of some nodes. If indeed, so I think what Aniket is trying to say is that if the tree is not complete binary, is not full binary tree, then there will be some node whose depth I can decrease without changing without changing anything else in the tree. So I can obtain another tree which has smaller length strings for at least one letter in the tree, and thereby achieving optimal a smaller cost tree. That's quite right. We can shift leaves lower down to a higher position and decrease cost. Amit is saying that we can in fact move the leaves up by one or two or how many ever positions and obtain another tree, thereby reducing the total cost. So all these are absolutely correct answers. Aniket, your answer was also correct. You need not have deleted it. So basically, Amit's answer, Aniket's answer was saying, Aniket and previous answer was saying that uh, giving a thought behind how what must be the reason for it to not be optimal. And Amit is actually giving like an algorithmic way of arguing about it by telling you what to do if you find if you find a binary tree which is not full. Uh, do what Amit is saying to obtain another binary tree, which will then have smaller cost. So both are correct. One couple of them were graph theoretical arguments, and Amit's is more of a graph theoretical argument, which is also algorithmic. Right. So that's all absolutely right. Let me just summarize this in a slide. Suppose there is a node U, which is the only child of its parent V. Delete V and make U the child of V's parent. V doesn't have any other child. So just delete this and connect this here. Say this is W. This only decreases the total cost of the tree, but doesn't change anything else in the tree. It doesn't touch anything else in the tree. So how could the original tree be optimal if I am able to encode one of the letters with fewer bits? That's all. Right. So in fact, what you have said already is a complete argument. All right. So with this thing in mind that we are dealing with full binary trees because anyway we want to talk about optimal embedding, optimal encodings. We can as well assume that the trees we are looking at are complete. All right. So what I'm going to say is the correctness argument or the optimality argument we can break down into two small statements. Okay, each is reasonably easy to prove. Um, it helps to think about some of these proofs in a modular way whenever you can. We tend to in exam situations, or even when we are just coming up with proofs by ourselves, the first proof we obtain for anything is always like a stream of consciousness, like we come up with, oh, this must have happened, and then this must happen, therefore this must happen, and so on. This is great for the first ideas, typically, but finally, when we are trying to completely formalize our thoughts, and also we wish to communicate our thoughts to another person, like in the exam situation, you feel your algorithm is correct, you write some sort of a longish proof for it. But also, the idea of writing the proof is to convince the TA or the instructor that, in fact, what you are thinking is